This is the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game.
Rule number one is you have to believe in yourself. You're the only one who doesn't think you belong in this appointment. The prospect has already validated your existence by scheduling time with you. Get it through your head you belong here, go in there, crush it, and close the deal.
A place where sales professionals can come to learn from other sales professionals and thought leaders that have mastered their craft.
The difference between a good salesperson and a best-in-class salesperson is only 2 minutes. By spending an extra 2 minutes on what you might think is a mundane task in the sales game, you separate yourselves from the pack, you grow your book of business, you close more deals, and you retain your accounts.
As well as their peers who are still striving for perfection to achieve their why.
I have a wife and 4 kids. Failure is not an option.
Real sales professionals, real stories, real results. Are you ready to feel the power?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game, and we are at take 2 with Andy Phillips because yours truly forgot to hit the record button, and we had a great episode recorded that is now lost forever. So
classic.
We are going to do our best to recreate that, and the best way to do that is just to have a normal conversation, because I'm a creature of habit, and I'm probably going to ask the same or similar questions, and hopefully we keep this thing on the rails. But we have got an awesome guest for you today. This is a guy who I had the pleasure of being on his podcast. He's in the insurance industry at the Urconic Agency, which is also a Keystone Agency and member. And he's the author of a brand new book that is releasing tomorrow, the day after we record this, called Round Zero, and it's about the NFL draft. And he has some really unique perspective in that, and I can't wait to dig in and find out, what his thoughts are in the book, because I just know what it's like when you play sports your entire life and you get to a certain point and it's time to say, you know what? Don't have it anymore. I got to figure out the next thing to do. And so without any further introduction, Mr. Andy Phillips, what's up, brother?
What's up, man? I appreciate you doing this. We had a nice little rehearsal for this for this one, so I think this one should be better. But no, I appreciate you guys having me. You guys are the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Lord knows I need as much practice as I can get. So before we get into the book and what's going on in the agency world, sort of get everybody up to speed on your background and why this book is so important to you, because I know you've got some pretty cool history to share.
Yeah, so for those of you that are listening and don't know me, I was born and raised in Michigan, and I played football at Central Michigan University, which is in the MAC conference. I was a lineman there, started almost 4 years. Had my chance in the NFL. Didn't get drafted, didn't get signed. About an hour after the draft, the Packers called me and basically offered me a tryout. So the following weekend, I went out to Green Bay and to the rookie camp, which means they had all their drafted guys, all the guys they signed after the draft, and they want to host a 2-day practice. Well, to do that, you need extra bodies. So there was 25 tryout guys out there. I was one of them, and I was the only one of the 25 to get a contract after that. So it was a wild experience, and I was there, and for about 5 months, I saw a lot of people that were there before me leave before me. Which, if you're a former athlete, you're a competitor, David, that's gratifying in itself. Not that you want to see people lose their jobs, but ones who got more money than you, aka signing bonus that I didn't even get, and ones who maybe were taken ahead of you, it is a you kind of prove it to yourself. I never really needed to prove anything in football to anyone else. I always wanted to prove things to myself. It's funny because if you saw me on the field, you thought I was the most confident person on the planet, because I was, based on my preparation. But up until that first snap, I was completely motivated by fear. I was so scared to mess up for my teammates, so scared to mess up and not be able to be proud of what I put on film. But that actually drove me throughout the week. And then as soon as that first whistle happened, that first play happened, those pads popped, I was very confident. But so having that competitive fire and seeing how far I can make it was great. I ended up being cut. I was a cut casualty. One of, if not the last guy cut from the Packers in 2015. Got playing 4 preseason games. But my experience there, so now I'm in the insurance world with the Urconic Agency, but my passion for football hasn't left. My experience leading up to the draft actually led me to this book. I had a conversation with Dave Magazoo, rest in peace, but he was the offensive line coach with the Chicago Bears at the time. And Coach Magazoo called me an hour before the first round started. Now, we knew I wasn't getting drafted first round. This is not that. But he called me an hour before the first round started, and he said, "Hey, Andy, it's going to be a great weekend for you. I can't wait. I'm hoping we're a part of it, but it's going to be a life-changing weekend." So right there, I'm like, all right, well, Bears have a couple late-round picks. Worst case scenario, sounds like they're going to offer me a contract after. Well, the draft comes and goes. The signing kind of period, you could call it, come and go. Bears want nothing to do with me. So every year I watched the draft, and I always wondered why, where was the the mix up in their organization? Because I know for damn sure he wouldn't have had that conversation. He wouldn't have wasted his time if he didn't think that they had an opportunity to at least sign me. So there had to be some miscommunication and maybe who they were thinking for those late round and undrafted spots. And I always wondered every year, who's getting that call? Where's the mistakes? What are we missing in the pre-draft cycle that us as fans don't get to see? So I figured if I could get the four angles of the draft, agents, coaches, players, and general managers, if I could get interviews with those four areas, I might be able to piece some answers together, or at least give stories that give people an idea of what really takes place in those like 4 months leading up until the draft. And would help the Pro Football Hall of Fame, would help with some of my connections, and then just, I mean, David, we're pests on the phones in our job by nature. So some of that with emails and calling, it was no different than work, being able to get some of these other connections for the book. So great book, opportunity to speak with some unbelievable people, get their stories from different angles, the likes of, Elise Steinberg, who the movie Jerry Maguire was basically made after, getting his side of being an agent for the last 40 years, getting, an Aaron Rodgers, getting Warren Moon, who had a really unique draft path. Steve Mariucci, Bill Cowher. I mean, just unbelievable people involved in this, and to get their stories is pretty unbelievable. And I think we put together a good product, and it was even better than I wanted it to be. And you've written books, David. The scariest part is, boom, you have the deal with the publisher in place, and now it's performing. And when you have interviews involved, it's okay, I want to portray their story exactly how they would like it portrayed. And to be able to do all that, but then be able to kind of get the final copies and be satisfied with it and understand that I did just that, it was pretty incredible. But hey,
well, that sounds like the fear you described, before the whistle, before the kickoff, right? Like of messing things up for your teammates, and then once the whistle blew and you started hitting people, it's on.
I have the same fear in insurance, but it's a good fear. It's a motivating fear of doing your absolute best for a prospect in that time. And then as soon as that proposal hits, you're full of confidence because you did that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's always interesting to hear the things that motivate people, right? Because I don't know. I wouldn't say that I'm motivated by fear from anything. I'm more motivated because I was pissed off at life when I launched my agency. And that's probably not the healthiest thing to have motivate you, because I mean, literally there was nothing that would stand in my way from getting what I wanted. Like I would have fought, I would have bled. It doesn't matter. There was no chance of me doing anything but reaching some level of success because I was that angry at the world and that motivated to succeed. That doesn't always come across because you bring yourself together before you meet with prospects or clients or talk with your peer group. But it's all the times when nobody's seeing what's going on behind closed doors that you have to get your own head right before you can do any of this stuff. And so, I can relate to that at a certain level just for that reason. You had an interesting experience with Aaron Rodgers when you interacted with him. But actually, before I let you have you tell that story, I will say, the one thing that I tell everybody about writing a book is when that thing's published and it gets out to the public, it would be the equivalent to me of getting buck naked and walking through the busiest shopping mall at Christmas season, because everybody sees everything at that point, and there's not a dang thing you can do about it to reel it back in. And so you let yourself out there. And I mean, I'll give you a great example from Dirty 130. I thought it would be a brilliant idea for me to transcribe an entire chapter with artificial intelligence, not edit it and let it ride as is. And so if you read the chapter on webinars, some of these people are going to wonder how I sold a single insurance deal in my life, because it doesn't appear in some cases I can put a sentence together. And it's okay if I hand the book out and I'm going to be talking to a group of people who haven't read it yet, so I can tell them about that little Easter egg up front. But there's 3/4 of the people or more that bought my book that are probably, who is this clown and what is he doing? So I'm actually, when I recorded the Audible version myself in my own voice. And that's when I read it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is horrifying. I need to go back and edit this chapter and fix it. I mean, there's a couple of little things here and there in the rest of the book, but nothing like the one I did artificial intelligence wise. And guess what? It's there, it's out there. There's nothing I can do to change it for what's already been printed. I can only fix it for what's moving forward, but it's really kind of a helpless feeling, to be honest with you, man. You hope people like it. You hope that your message resonates, but you really don't know. And then the reviews start coming in and you're like, you can breathe a little bit easier because people are sending emails or shooting you messages to tell you that they like this part or that part or whatever. And that's the most gratifying part of the entire process. I mean, that's really the reason, I can't speak to your motivation for writing a book, but I can tell you that's really the reason for me, was just sort of to memorialize some of my thought process and, what I would have done that's led me to be successful, to be able to share that with other people and then get the feedback that it's actually worked for them. I'm not going to become a multimillionaire publishing books. Okay. It's just that's not what I do. But I can get those emails and that kind of feedback. And honestly, man, that's gas on a fire to me. That's better than the money. I don't need the money from selling a book. I do just fine in my job. I like knowing that people picked it up, read it, took action on it, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do, which is make a difference.
Absolutely. And I mean, my wife would tell you, when I first had this idea, it was a passion project, and I thought it would be unique for readers. And then my main goal is there's 18 people I want to make sure like the book, and those are the 18 people involved with their stories. I want to make sure they like it. But it's funny, now that you write it, I feel how you feel. I hope people find what I was hoping to get out of the book, and I hope that people enjoy it, and I hope they learn from it, and I hope the people that spend their hard-earned money on it are satisfied with their purchase. So you do get more of that. And then, it was never a financial gain purpose for me. Any money comes in for it, great. But it was more the gratification, the passion for it that really led me to do it. And something I always wanted to do. I'd say, since I started writing probably, 6-7 years ago, it was something I always wanted to do, but to be able to do it is gratifying for sure.
Yeah. So, here's the thing, man. Kyle's never going to write a book. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and call it out. Kyle has been on record multiple times, but for me,
I don't even know how to read.
For me,
I'm proof you don't have to know how to read to write a book. It's fine.
Yeah. It was actually kind of therapeutic too, man, just to get thoughts out of my head and get them down onto paper. It allowed me to think through processes and things that I've done. It helped me remember things that I might not have in my game right now that, worked at one point or another. And then there's other ideas that I thought about that maybe didn't work out so well, but based on changes of environment or technology today, I was able to, add some things back into my game and tweak them from a way that didn't work to what does work now. So I think there's a lot of benefits to it other than just getting a book out and sharing your story. There's a lot of personal benefits that come from it.
And what's interesting is, my college coach, Dan Enos, he always used to tell us, listen, if we had a couple game losing streak, he's like, go home, clean your entire room, deep dive into your apartment, clean that thing up, get your homework done. Like, it was like, his thing was that the people and the guys who are organized, motivated outside of football, that translates. And it's so ironic because I think a lot of people think like, oh, if I want to do well in my job, the only thing I can be doing is my job. But your brain doesn't work like that. Your brain needs the break from policy forms, but it doesn't mean your brain needs a break from activity. And I actually found during this process, from the time I started writing it to tomorrow release date, was the best period of my entire career. And it's ironic. Maybe it's, it's online with being where I'm at in my career as well. But at the same point, it's like when you're organized and you're thinking and you're driven off of your career, you find yourself even more organized, even more motivated, and even more, I guess, ready to succeed in the career too. So I thought about that during this entire thing was get your homework done, get your apartment and room cleaned, and you find that it translates into a more focused football experience. Well, the same thing happened with me with writing a book and my career in insurance as well. So it could be ironic, or it could be exactly what my college coach was preaching all those years.
My wife preaches she needs to get her headspace cleared out by me not stacking a bunch of crap on top of my dresser. So just throwing that out there.
There you go. We all have our spot.
So, what'd you learn about yourself going through the process? Because I think everybody who ever authors a book has a certain amount of self-realization as they're going through that process, which again is just another benefit to make you better in the long run. What'd you discover?
I'd say two things. Number one is I'm better with deadlines. I'm better when having my schedule completely filled out than I am just freewheeling. Like I'm a very organized individual. I work better when my day with work schedule, but then even at night, 7 to 8 doing, transcribing, 8 to 10 writing, like stuff like that. Like I'm more my head is clear when I have a schedule, when I have processes in place. And that doesn't need to be weeks and months out, but as long as like I go into the day and I know what I'm doing, I'm just that much better. And then the other thing is I think I'm more creative than I thought, and which is good, which was really good for me, because in writing, you have so many ways you can go, but you have to be able to turn all of that into like a very take that the concepts that are, left and right field, and be able to hit them right down second base for the book. And that was good for me with life. And that was good for me with work as well, because normally I'm a very black and white thinker. I've never been great in the gray area. This, we live in the gray area. And the book actually helped me with that, because every chapter wasn't what I thought it would be. I mean, when I wanted to write the book, my thought was, boom, each section, I'll have like 5 or 6 topics, and I'll get everybody in those sections to answer those questions and fill it from there. I got done with one interview and I'm like, no, this can't be this way, because if I box people into those 5 or 6 questions, I'm missing half their story. I'm missing what makes their journey unique. I can't do this. I had to live in the gray a little bit. And when things didn't go exactly black or white like I'm used to, that helped me with work. That helped me with life. And it's something I think I'd be able to carry a little bit more.
It's funny. I don't remember where it was that I talked about this, but I have talked about it. Just even doing the podcast where we're interviewing so many people, I've become a better question asker. I ask, and I think part of it is, we're always on the fly on here. People will send me emails. Hey, do you have a list of questions you ask? Nope, not really. We just sort of figure out what we want to ask as we listen to you talk. And I think listen, that's a diminishing skill, right? People are not good listeners for the most part. Most people out there want to listen with an intent to respond immediately instead of trying to understand your position so they can actually formulate a coherent response. And the other thing is they don't translate that into, okay, well, now I can ask the next question, and that makes sense. If you are improving your listening skills and your question asking skills, that is directly going to translate to your skill as a producer. You're going to be better on the phones. You're going to be better in person. You're going to learn not to make it all about you and listen more than you speak. And so I got to believe, especially with the level that some of the people are that you had the pleasure of interacting with, you get one shot, brother. That's it. Every time I hear that, I want to have like one of those easy buttons that just cuts to Eminem and go, you got one shot, but
Michigan's finest.
Yeah, but absolutely, man. And I think you're going to see that pay you dividends. So,
well, dude, think about like, so I'm back. I'm crushing a slice of za here off camera.
I'm so jealous.
I was getting goofy there for a minute. I was about to pass out.
Well, you got to describe the slice now because I can't see. I'm a lineman. I need to know what you're eating.
Hold up, man. Hold up. Let me give me a second.
I don't care what people think of me. I'm eating a salad with protein in it, some grilled chicken, and exactly 2 tablespoons of homemade dump ranch dressing, which
is it's a nice slice of pepperoni here. I mean, it's the old Bloomingdale pizza right down the street.
Flop to it. Good flop.
It's got a little bit of flop, but it's a little bit of crisp too. I'm kind of holding it weird.
That's
ideal.
Holding
it a little bit weird.
That's ideal.
I have very weak wrists, so
the fact that you have to bring that up while holding a slice of pizza actually tells me the quality of the pizza.
Yeah.
Well, in the fact you're talking about weak wrists when I've heard other things from your friends that went to high school with you. But anyhow.
Dude, I broke both my wrists in high school. It's the only thing I've broken except for fingers and toes.
Were you like a skateboarder or something? I mean, how'd you
I played basketball actually. So I didn't break it playing basketball either time. First time was on a Razor scooter, trying to hurdle over shit in my driveway.
So pretty close to skateboard.
Yeah, right. Pretty close. Razor scooters were the thing back in the day. And then the other time I was playing football. So I was just like, it was just a little pickup game at the Commons and there's no need. I was 10 yards through the end zone, like that we had made. And it wasn't painted or anything. It was just like we set up cones and it's like this dude tackled me and landed on top of it. I mean, I'm not a huge guy and was certainly not big at that point. I was probably like 135 soaking wet. And dude tackled me.
I call that 5th grade.
Yeah, exactly. And landed all his body weight on top of me and my wrist just crumbled. But anyhow. Initially what I had brought up was the fact that like if you look back at the initial podcast and like you were talking about questions and listening and all that, like very choppy, especially on my end. I come on these and have no idea who we're talking with, and B, no idea what we're going to be talking about. So the first 15 minutes or whatever, I'm typically just sitting there trying to figure out what the hell it is, especially if it's something tech related, and then trying to formulate some sort of semi-intelligent question based upon what's been happening already. So that's how these pods work.
I love it. Natural conversation.
100%. But honestly, man, I think that's one of the reasons why it's grown to what it has too. It's not the same canned bull crap. Yeah, the other thing is we know our stuff. So when we ask questions, it proves that we're not just here to be podcast hosts that happen to have an insurance agency. We just happen to have a podcast. We know the insurance game very well. So, I think that's a big difference too. And that was not direct, by the way, before I ever have anybody throwing anything at me. I'm not saying anybody that's got an insurance podcast is that way. So maybe that wasn't a good example. I don't need any of my friends getting offended because I'm good friends with literally about everybody who has an insurance podcast. I'm simply saying that we're insurance agents first, and this is a fun little side thing, right? And so we're always going to conduct ourselves that way. Probably not going to have the best production quality, probably not going to have all the best questions, but we will have really good technical information and real world examples. And we're going to get the same from our guests that we have on. So I've heard this story before. Talk to Kyle though. I want you to share your story about when you were with, when you had your interaction with Aaron Rodgers there, and it may even have been at that practice that you were talking about or shortly after.
Yeah, so Aaron was always great to me. I don't know why. I mean, when I got signed, I was the last man on the roster. The very first day, he comes up to me at walkthrough, introduces himself, asks me if I have any questions, stuff that you don't have to do. Trust me, I was in the locker room. You hear guys who came from other teams, and I won't name names, but other star quarterbacks don't do that, right? If you're not a starter, they're not talking, basically. But Aaron, he came right up to me. I was the 89th man on the roster the day I got signed. He made a point to come up to me. I thought that'd be it, we move on. No, it seemed like every day, every other day for the longest time when we were in walkthroughs, he'd come up to me. What do you need to know? And I think it was because I was a center. He was a quarterback, like just understanding calls.
I was going to ask which spot on the line you were. Okay.
I was going to say, man, the guy's not dumb by any stretch. He's building the relationship with the guy that's going to protect him right out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was center and guard. So either way, I'd be right there. But no, it was interesting. I mean, and then it turned into questions, once he knew I kind of knew my stuff, then it was quizzing me about like unique, obscure stuff that we didn't learn in the meeting, especially as rookies to that point. Like stuff that they'd seen in week 14, the week before, the year before when I wasn't around, like just curious.
Mm-hmm.
They bring this blitz, they show this look, what's your call? I check to this, what are you calling? Like little things like that. And it was the best thing for me because you feel that pressure of head man in charge wanting to know what you know. And it was unbelievably motivating for me. Well, the story David's referring to is my last practice, and didn't know it was going to be my last practice. You have an idea it might be because it's the last practice before the final preseason game.
Right.
Well, this is back when in the NFL, starters still played most of the preseason games. Like,
so what year is this? I might have missed it.
2015.
Okay.
So it was before the Sean McVay kind of took over LA and said, nope, none of our stars are playing. And then the NFL starting to adopt that a little bit more. This is back when, on my first game, we opened up at New England and Brady and Rodgers started the game. You know what I mean? So like, this is that era. So my final game is against the Saints. And now this is when they would sit starters. Typically it was the final ones because that gives them 2 weeks really between game action before the regular season starts.
Mm-hmm.
So we get into our walkthrough, and this would have been the day before. I think we played on a Friday night on NFL Network. So this has been Thursday. And listen, man, when you're just trying to make a team and you're an undrafted guy, I went and I did all my reps that I was doing on offense with our team against the scout defense. You had scripts, especially the day before. And then when it turned over and the number one defense went out there, they need a scout team offense. I'm right back in there at center. So I'm doing a lot of plays in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So I go in there with the scout team offense, very first play. Aaron wasn't playing against New Orleans the next day. He was resting. So he wasn't practicing. He had his jersey on, had his helmet with him, but he was. Next thing I know, I'm in the huddle, and he comes in, he taps out the quarterback, and he's going to run scout team offense to mess with the defense. So next thing I know, I'm at center, and I have Aaron Rodgers behind me, the reigning MVP of the league. And this is when walkthroughs are awkward because the speed, it's not a walkthrough, by the way, but it's depending who you're going against. Some guys like hard first 3 steps contact, then you kind of let the play out, no one gets injured type thing. Dude's trying to make the team, might as well be alive, period, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not knowing really, I had the adrenaline of Aaron Rodgers, behind me, taking snaps from me. I come out that first play, and I fire off the ball like an absolute cannon at BJ Raji. Do you remember the name BJ Raji?
Yes, absolutely.
BJ 6'3", 6'4". He came into camp that year, the lightest he'd been since his rookie year, and I think he was 337 pounds, the lightest. I fired off at him. He wanted to fight me, and it was like break each other, like break up, like everything like that. And I'm like, I got 12 behind me. I'm not getting walked back into him. Anyway, we go on, and we're moving the ball, and it's hilarious because scout team offense, they hold up the card. You get in your huddle, they're holding the card of a play the Saints would run to get your defense ready. And we would get to line of scrimmage, and Aaron would audible everything. He would see the defensive look. He'd audible our plays. So now I'm having to do the whole audibling everything at the line of scrimmage. His audibles changed my calls to the rest of the line, and we're marching the ball right downfield. Well, Aaron's known for, if you don't watch Packers, Aaron's known for his hard counts, getting the defense to jump, and then you get a free play, right? Whereas it doesn't really matter what happens. We get at least 5 yards. But the key with that is the center, you got to know when to snap it.
You got to snap it.
You get to see the movement out of the side of your eyes, unless it's right in front of you. And you have to get the ball off in sync, because if you hold it too long and the guy starts going backwards and you snap it, that's a false start everyone on the offense.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I had my shot. Aaron had a hard count where I'm about the 5-yard line going in, and he got him. Guy's off. I snap it. He's dropping, rolls out, touchdown. Came up, smacked me on the helmet. Great bleeping job. And it was like one of those cool moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
I played the next day. I think PFF had me as the highest graded player on the Packer offense. Last game I ever played of football. So I ended on a good note. But I always wondered if Aaron, I thought the reason he hopped in was because he wanted to mess with the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And the more the years that went on, I always wondered
if he knew you were out.
If he knew like me
Yeah.
and maybe some of the other guys, this is the last time we'd ever play football again. Let's give these guys some memories.
That's interesting, man.
I got to talk
Okay.
to him for the
Okay.
I got to talk to him for the book. So we're 7 years later, and I asked him. I said, first off, when he got on the phone, I'm like, listen, this isn't like beyond recollection for me that 90 guys, there's gonna be 30 guys every single season that he sees for a 4 to 5 month period and never sees again in his life. And you do that for, at the time, 17, 18 seasons. It's a lot of guys. You're not going to remember a lot of them, right? I mean, think about it. David, when you go to your speaking engagements, for example, you meet a lot of people at those, shake a lot of hands. If I asked you 7 years later, do you remember every single one? Knowing you probably remember a lot of them, but there's going to be some people that you don't.
I would, but only because I was trained to remember stuff like that using really specific techniques. But in all reality, no. I mean, it's impossible.
I mean, this guy sees 30 guys every single year that are in the same locker room, same practice field with him for 4 to 5 months, but they move on. Well, this is 7 years later, and I got to ask him. I said, first off, it's not lost on me that you didn't have to do this. You might not remember who I am, and I take zero offense to that. But I was an undrafted guy, and I just appreciate you doing this. And his response was, something along the lines, paraphrase, some of you guys stand out more than others. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And then I asked him, I said, listen, I told him about that practice. And he started like nodding, shaking his head. And he just kind of said, he goes, it's not lost on him that it could be the last time for a lot of guys on that field. He likes making memories for him. So I thought it was pretty cool that he, to be at the top of the mountain and to understand those moments for guys beneath you, I think it's a very cool trait, and it's why, listen, the media can bash them all they want. Guys in that locker room,
that's what I was going to say, man. I mean, you hear the stories that the media puts out on so many people. I mean, Aaron Rodgers certainly gets his fair share of media coverage.
It's all they talk about on Get Up.
Yeah, good, bad, otherwise, whatever, right? But at the end of the day, you don't have a career in the NFL or in anything in the world like that where you're responsible for leading an organization or a team unless you have leadership ability.
No doubt.
Part of having leadership ability and being an effective leader is to understand what servant leadership is. You're 100% right, man. That guy didn't have to go out and take a single snap. He didn't have to do anything.
He's a made man.
But what he did was, number one, make a huge impact on those of you that he came out and played with, but he also set the tone for the rest of the team who could see, hey, here's a guy that has no business being out here, no real requirement, and yet he's here. You're not the only guy that asked him why he did that day. And that's a great leadership lesson for the people who were with him for the rest of the season, because I think that Rodgers is honestly, I mean, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. And you're both probably far more deep into the weeds on this than what I am, but which means that the media probably impacts my opinion more than yours, because I don't bother to research anything. But I think he's highly regarded as a selfish prima donna for the most part that is going to do it his way and his way only. That action doesn't ring true with me, right?
No, and the reason I think it is listen, especially when you're a quarterback, you can have a lot of different avenues between your publicists, between the former players who you played with who are in the media now, and between just any connection you want out of your text, that you can get stories like I just told you, that could get out. If he wanted out, he could have a publicist leak something like that, but Aaron isn't concerned with that. He really isn't. He's concerned with the dudes in the locker room, and if they respect him, that's all he cares about. And because you don't have those stories, and because the only real media he goes on is McAfee, his boy, I think the other media just assumes like, oh, he's not giving us an interview. Oh, he's not, we don't hear the stories like we hear about some of these other guys, that he must be a what. And it's just not true. Listen, it's just not true. And I go to bat for that guy any day, because again, he didn't have to even, glance at me, and he was so good to me. And not even just 7, 8 years ago, but a year ago, talking to him on the phone about this.
That's cool,
Well,
man.
And the thing too is, it's so much more powerful when it doesn't come from the media in a leak, right?
100%.
Like something like this is authentic, man. I mean, he'll never know that this existed. I mean, maybe Will Rodgers, if you ever want to come up, you're welcome to come have a chat with us. I mean, hell, I'll probably go in the woods with you for a month and grow my hair long if you want me to do that too. But at the end of the day,
I would love to see you with some long hair. I can't even begin to.
I bet Dave had some flow back in the day.
You know what? I never could grow it that long because it's so fine. It would just get stringy. What I would look like is a really bad version of Ben Franklin. Because the problem is, if I don't keep my hair trimmed on the sides, I go straight Polly Walnuts with the white walls on the side. So
by the way, real quick sidebar on the whole Polly Walnuts, and just Sopranos in general. I read this book that is called oh my God. It's Michael Imperioli and Steve Sharippa that they have a podcast, and I think it's just called Talking Sopranos, but they wrote a book too. And it's like them interviewing people and stuff like that. But my favorite part of the book is the fact that Paulie Walnuts is basically playing himself in real life.
He is.
Aside from like, he's not, he wasn't like in the mob, but like, the way he acted and all that stuff was just like spot on. They actually used his apartment like that he lived in as they recreated it, and it's like a mirror image on the set or anything. But sorry to
no, those are the best actors, the ones that you don't think are actually acting, who really are like Vince Vaughn plays virtually the same dude.
God, I love
every
Vince Vaughn
movie,
so much.
And I'll watch every single one of them. I will watch 100% of them.
Me too. And I feel like, all right, he's been this character. He's been the 42-year-old bachelor who's like really sarcastic and funny and like
quick, witty,
way too long and way too many times for me not to think that's you in real life.
Yeah, for sure. And so, and this I'm glad that this has been brought up, because this kind of ties into something I was going to bring up. So I went to USF, and one of my roommates and one of my, good buddies we actually knew each other since middle school, probably like 6th grade. He played on the O line at USF when I was there. So we were there. We were there when we actually got ranked up. We were number 2 in the nation at that point. And, I swear to God, man, the offensive linemen were the funniest MRFers that I ever came in contact with. They had their own language. This is where Big Cat came from, David. Like they like everybody was called Big Cat, and obviously, it came from Wedding Crashers because it had come out a few, years before that. But oh my God, man, they were some of the funniest dudes in the world.
I'm not even going to go ahead and tell you that it was actually the nickname of Andres Galarraga, known first baseman for the Montreal Expos, Atlanta Braves, and Colorado Rockies. Just throwing that out there.
There you go.
He was the Big Cat too.
I swear, man, those dudes were such characters. I used to love. We would just go out to the bars, and it was like I could basically do anything I wanted because I had these massive 350-pound guys walking around.
Bodyguards.
Yeah, they were just like, dude, they were the best, man.
Well, it's kind of funny, man, because I'm the smallest of all my friends, and I'm not a small dude, but I mean, I've got friends that are legit 6'6", 6'7", 350, 360. And so that's probably one of the reasons my mouth used to get the best of me too. The funny part about Vince Vaughn is, if you like that style of humor and you're his fan, it's so relatable. Like, I would have no problem walking up to that dude on the street, fully expecting he'd be willing to hang out with me, because he should be, right? Like, we would have an awesome time hanging out. But it's always interesting to see, and especially how people are, in real life compared to what you expect them to be based on. In his case, it's fictitious, or is it, right? But, even some of the other people, and I apologize, I cut you off when you were getting ready to say something, Andy.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, there's 2 groups of people you can always tell no matter what, and that's offensive linemen and wrestlers. Like, there's just something about the personalities that is uniform, that you'll walk up to one and you meet one, and within a minute, like, did you play a line, or you wrestled, didn't you? And it's not the Kyle player. It's like a personality trait.
Yeah.
Which is just...
For sure.
It's funny. But yeah, Vince Vaughn. Maybe he's listening. I mean, he's just a regular guy like us, right?
I don't know why he wouldn't be, honestly. He's probably in the middle of a breakup of a relationship, just waking up after a rough night with hookers and poker in the living room, you know.
You're referring to, in my opinion, maybe the greatest rom-com of all time.
The breakup. Oh yeah.
The scene when he's playing Madden with Jennifer Aniston's date.
And talking smack the whole time. I think my all-time favorite line in the entire movie is, "You can't take a pitch pipe out of a man's hand when he's in the middle of a funky groove. You can get hurt doing something like that."
Michael Higgins, legend.
That guy, there's another guy that plays the same character in every single thing he's in, because if you watched Pitch Perfect, he's in all three of those. Same general, sarcastic, very, very deep level sense of humor.
Hell, he's the elf in Fred Claus with Vince Vaughn. And he's the same kind of dude.
Isn't it funny how those guys sort of run with their boys in all their movies? Like, John Favreau is going to show up, even if it's only a cameo. And Adam Sandler is the same way, man. It's like Sandler takes all the same guys in every movie.
Sandler's hilarious because it's like, there's going to be 8 of the same people in the same movie. You're just wondering when they pop up.
And what character they're playing this time, right?
Yeah.
Rob Schneider,
Rob Schneider,
David Spade,
dude, you know who
Rock, Kevin James,
Nick Swartzen. So
Nick Swartzen,
Ron Howard's
I've got
brother.
a Nick Swartzen story. So
yes, Ron Howard's brother, the dude who was cross-eyed in Waterboy.
Oh yeah,
he's been in multiple since.
Oh yeah, him. Even just all of them have, man. I mean, Wedding Singer. I actually like doing a scavenger hunt, watching Adam Sandler movies just to pick out all of those people, because they're not always in like a main starring role either. It might just be like one quick thing where they pass by or whatever, and you're like, even the dude that played Farmer Fran.
You know who's been in like 8 or 9 of his movies is Dan Patrick, the Dan Patrick Show.
Yeah,
he's been in like 8 or it's always like very small. Like I want to say Grown Ups, he was like the gym teacher. Like one.
He was the cop in. He was the cop that was with the other guy that was like laughing when he made fun of the other cop in Longest Yard.
Yes. He always has one scene. He's always a smart aleck. It's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, just take your boys to the top with you.
Well, Dan Patrick was the man when I was growing up, man. I mean, that was the big show on Sports Center when you had Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Stuart Scott crushed it. All those guys were the best. SVP. I still sit there and watch SVP every night.
He crushes. Those guys are
for sure.
There's been rumors that they're going to make the beginning of like ESPN Sports Center movie.
That'd be cool, because I saw like a document. I don't even know if it was a documentary, but it was like I don't know if it was like a E60 or a 30 for 30 on something similar to that. Or maybe it was just showing you all the old Sports Center stuff. That might have been what it was. But
like Chris Berman, Boomer, he was like one of, if not the first employee, and it was like a huge risk. It was like him and who was the guy who used to do Outside the Lines, like really
Bob Lee.
Yes, they were like the real like first 2 guys, and it was like.
Yeah,
well, is ESPN.
And they didn't even look like sportscasters. They looked like weathermen that had eaten too much.
100%.
Love it.
So listen, man, we've talked about football. Talk a little bit about how those things have translated over into your career as a producer in the agency. I mean, we have to a certain degree with the comments surrounding organization and everything else, but what else do you think you tap into from your experience as an athlete that gets you juiced up when you're ready to produce?
Yeah, I mean, there's really 3 things to me, I think that.
And I hope one of them is an awesome pregame ritual, not to stack the deck in my favor, but.
Not really, man. And I wasn't really big on that in college with football either. I wasn't really a ritual guy. Like some games I'd listen to some music, some games I wouldn't. Like the only thing is weird, and I'm gonna get into actual insurance. The only thing I did that's weird, and I still kind of do it to this day, and it makes me seem like an absolute psycho, is like if I have a left and a right option, like socks, shoes, football gloves, the left has to go on first. And it's the weirdest thing ever because I'm not superstitious, but apparently I am, because like if I forgot and popped out my right sock first, I would take it off to get the left one on. So I guess to that extent, I'm still like that to this day, because before I head to a meeting, my left shoe will be on first. But anyways, now everyone turned off the podcast, which is great.
No, but I mean, look at these guys that get in. I mean, the stuff in between pitches in the batter's box is insane.
No
Like,
more
I-
Garcia
with the
Parra.
gloves, like,
that little
on,
like glove
off,
thing
and-
he used to do.
Yeah.
all of that stuff. I mean, I used to just get in there and rip, man. Like, hurry up, let's get this thing over with. Bring it.
Yeah, the pitch. You didn't need the pitch clock that they're doing these days.
Not
So
at
yeah,
all.
no, insurance man. I really pride myself on. I'm persistent as hell. Like I am. Like it does not bother me. Like to keep reaching out in different angles until you tell me no, then I'm respectful. But like I'm persistent when it comes to the cold calling stuff. I'm persistent with my emails. I'm persistent in trying to find new angles to reach the people I think I need to be connected with because we're solution oriented. We find problems. We lean heavy into workers' comp. We lean heavy into finding people that are having trouble not controlling their experience mod. I mean, you guys know, I mean, people who don't use that to their advantage in our industry are just not using information because our goal as producers is to help, is to fix. And if you're not doing either of those, you might get business for a year, but you're going to be on the chopping block every other year after that. Our goal is to get into organizations that have an issue, find out the issue by listening to them, like we talked about earlier, listening. Tell me what I see a problem. I can see that on paper, but tell me why we're there. Tell me why the last 10 years your mod's above a 1.5. Like I can see that on paper. I need to know internally in your organization, what do you think your issues are? Because you're going to know more than I do from looking at a piece of paper. Tell me what's going on. And then I will help find solutions and resources to get that number, but we're going to need buy-in as well. I find that if you're persistent and you have an ability to listen and provide a resource and provide value, you can have success in this industry. And it's no different than football. Listen, when you're running, you're not just running plays that are on paper. Every play is a touchdown when it's drawn up. It's execution when the defense is doing something you've never seen. All that is done through preparation. All that is done with having the resources in your playbook, in your brain, in your studies, in your practice, in your habits to execute when things aren't right. Well, that's insurance. When things aren't right with an experience mod, when things aren't right with claims, when things aren't right with services that they currently have, it's up to us to adapt and to be able to move forward and help them solve those issues. And we pride ourselves on not just talking about it, but doing it. And I think those things have easily translated. And then, I mean, I'm going to be honest, man, I like to win. And we all like to win. And to me, you have to, I forgot who said it. Maybe it's no one famous. Maybe it's just something that people say, but I love the quote, you have to earn the right to win. And we believe we do that in the back end. So when it comes time and you're putting that left shoe on first and you're maybe turning on some music and you're heading to a presentation and you win it, you know, you've earned it. And that's gratifying. And then it's, you know, like we talked about, now it's time to prove it. And we're confident in our ability to do that.
I got to believe too, just with the amount of work that goes into performing at that high of a level, and probably the closest I've ever come to being in Major League Baseball is in a semi-pro wooden bat league I played in between my freshman and sophomore years of college, which was pretty cool to do because I was playing with guys that became household names at one point.
Right.
I got to face Tim Wakefield, which was kind of wild.
Was he still throwing knuckleball, I'd imagine?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. I mean, he was not even in the majors yet. Like I'm that old and he was that young, but you know, that was an interesting experience. But, you know, I think about what you have to do to prepare as an athlete, right? Preparation is key. It's what you do in the off season, as you well know. It's what you do, you know, pre-game, post-game, you know, what are you doing to study and make yourself better? How often are you watching film and reviewing your playbooks and all of these other things? And I think that if you're used to being in that kind of a regimen, it makes it really easy for you to just move in and figure out how you need to take what you do now in the insurance industry and format it to fit what your day looked like before.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and as you can tell, when I got into the insurance industry, I let the insurance industry take the place of me going to the gym on a regular basis. But, you know, I just think that that's probably that the winning mentality is certainly one of those things. I don't know that sports gives that to us. I think it brings it to the forefront. I think you're born that way, man, to be completely honest with you. I think, you know, some people are born that they just want to be driven competitors and be at the top of the game no matter what. Other people are happy just getting by, and other people just, quite frankly, don't care. But, you know, Do you think that that's accurate? Do you think that how
Yeah.
you prepare for a new business appointment or just even your normal work week has been impacted based on how you used to prepare for the football field?
Absolutely. I mean, the reason I even got that contract as the only try guy in Green Bay is because I knew what the hell I was doing. And the only reason I knew what the hell I was doing was because they dropped us off that first night. We all fly in, you go through physicals, you get your equipment, you're getting ready, you get back to the hotel about 9 o'clock or so, 9:30, and they're picking you back up the next morning at 6 a.m. A lot of guys went to bed. I didn't. I studied the playbook until my eyes were bleeding, and I sacrificed. I said, listen, I'm not going to sleep much these next 2 days. I can get by, but I'm going to know what I'm doing on the field. And the very first day that rookie camp, me and this other center from Oregon, we split the reps. By day number 2, I got 90% of the reps because I knew what I was doing. They trusted me. And if your center can't get everyone on the same page, it is an ugly practice. And I knew that. I'd been around the block enough. So I knew my study habits and the work I would put in, it would get to the point where it would translate, and they had no choice but to keep me. And the same thing with insurance. You study hard enough, your prospect, their needs, their issues, you put in enough work and you come in with a good product, it's kind of the same. It's like, you're coming in and they can't afford to let you go. They have to keep you around. And listen, you're going to lose some though too. And it is what it is. We're in the industry for the reason, but I totally agree. You're born as a competitor. I mean, there's a lot of people that think they are, and good for them, but the competitors, because they're the ones who in between practices are diving on the floor playing ping pong for no reason. For a thing, they're the ones playing Monopoly or Uno with their nieces, nephews, son, and family, and they want to win. It's not an option. And I agree with you. The winning is just one of my favorite things. Actually, I'm just quick sidetrack. You ever see people after they win the Super Bowl and they don't look elated?
It's like expected. They're like, this should have happened.
It's the expected, but it's also
or like they're relieved.
They're relieved
right,
because it's like all the work I put in for this, like it happened. Brett Favre had a great, not in my book, he's in my book, but not for that reason, but he had a great story about he was that guy in the podium in 96, or I guess it would have been 97 on the podium, but this 96 season, they beat the Patriots and he was just kind of up there, and it was kind of like, what now? Like,
yeah.
It's about the journey. It's about the climb. It's about the fight to get there. And then when it goes your way, you expect it because of the work you put in. You get the win. That you're just ready. All right, what's next? I mean, when you win an account, it's like a really nice account, man. You're happy, but the next morning it's kind of like business as usual. What are we doing?
Yeah, honestly, man, sometimes I'm in that relieved state for a couple of days and it doesn't even sink in that, holy cow, now we need to get to work and onboarding this and the rest of it starts. Or I think it's probably another really good analogy would be like a UFC fighter that's in like a 3-month fight camp leading up to this championship fight. And it's like they win, they're so overcome with emotion and everything at that moment. And then they may take a day, they may take 2 days off, but most of these dudes, they're right back at it the next day because they know they have to maintain that. The other thing I was going to say on an aside, Ryan Jensen, outstanding center for the Tampa Bay Bucks, fan favorite. Love that dude. There is never anybody who's going to play on his team that doesn't know he has their back because my guy is nasty. Like, I never pay attention to centers until that guy is on the field.
That's a fair point.
And then it's always like, what's the next thing Jensen's getting ready to do? And it's amazing the difference he has on the team. We have been going almost an hour. I want to be respectful of your time, and we are batch recording, so we need to stay on time. Before I do, though, I want to make sure everybody knows, we have a habit or a custom or whatever we want to call it here, where when we have somebody who wrote a book on, we give away copies of their book. So I need you to follow directions, because one thing I can tell you about listeners of Power Producers is, for as much as you listen to the podcast, I don't think you actually listen to the podcast. So I need you to send me an email to david@killingcommercial.com, david@killingcommercial.com. In the subject line, I need you to put round 0 so I can filter by subject, And then in the body, I need your name and address, man. Come on, people. You're sending me things in the subject line, and I don't even know where to ship it half the time with some of y'all. So take the time to do that right. I want to get Andy's book out. I'm sure it's going to do awesome on its own, but it's one of the ways we like to reward the people who listen to us too. Now, understand, people, you are not ordering from Amazon. So sometimes it might take David a week or two to get those things shipped out, because I do ship them all. Nicole helps, and she's the one who does the shipping out of the office here in Valrico. It doesn't come from Amazon or anywhere else. So just know that you're going to get it. It may not be as fast as you like, but I'm giving you a free book as fast as I can give you a free book. So
I appreciate that, David.
Yep. If you will get that over to me, it'll go to the first 12. And other than that, hey, I think the redo was better than the first one, man. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think it was great. Yep. And Kyle, just the cameo with the weak wristed pizza display.
Just a little floppy, just so dainty.
Yeah, you had to get under it. Like, I don't think you could have held it out this way.
I couldn't. I was trying to get it so the camera could see it.
That has to be on the t-shirt. That has to be on the t-shirt. Like a character.
It would literally look like the pizza with Steven Seagal in Out for Justice snapping your arm in half at the wrist. So anyhow,
the fact that your weak wrists were brought up because you're holding a slice of pizza. I mean, I feel bad for you.
It's all right. Self-deprecation's how I roll.
There you go.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can't make fun of yourself, what's the point? So
exactly.
Anyhow, Andy, thanks so much, brother. We'll catch you soon and look forward. Hopefully you're able to make it to New Orleans. I'll see you then.
I appreciate
everybody
it.
Everybody else, catch you next time.